Well, you know, the big news about Senator Dole resigning from the Senate, does that change anybody's mind? Traditionally, our audiences here in Buffalo are divided right down the middle. There's a screening. We don't let anybody just in here. So how many of you were not inclined to vote for Bob Dole until today when he resigned? Your mind has changed. Well, that settles it, doesn't it? Right. It's all, well, now he's resigned from the Senate, so now this gives him time to spend full time and attention on losing. You know what my opening line was going to be? The opening line was going to ask the question, would Pat Buchanan have named a female running mate, or do you think Marge Schott is just too controversial? Did you ever notice that when Bill Clinton makes a speech at a funeral, he goes way up in the polls? It happens every time. Clinton is at his best at a funeral. Dole is at his best when the funeral isn't his. It is the middle of summer and election year. The two political conventions are just weeks away. This show is as neutral as is humanly possible. I like Bill Clinton. I like Bob Dole. I like his campaign slogan, "The smoking lamp is lit." Now with his speech on education, he's got a new slogan, "Hooked on phonics." I like that. And now it appears that General Colin Powell won't be any more help to the Dole campaign than Dole is. Because Colin Powell says that he will vote for Bob Dole, but he won't campaign for him. He'll speak at the convention, or maybe he won't. He will play a role, but he doesn't know what kind. General Powell qualifies so many statements, the stars on his shoulders are asterisks. So Clinton is ahead of Bob Dole in the polls. However, Bob Dole has gone up 10 points in the polls since he left the Senate. So he plans to leave the Senate 3 more times before the summer is over. You remember when he left the Senate, and all of a sudden this was the new Bob Dole, very casual, open-neck shirt, powder blue, blazer beige, slacks, looking like he was either taking a carnival cruise to the Bahamas or showing up for the early bird special at Denny's. Well, you remember he was supposed to speak at the NAACP, but he went to the All-Star game instead, and he said they set him up, and he was grouchy about that. He could have used the old Dole humor. He could have said that the reason he went to the All-Star game instead of the NAACP is because the All-Star game is integrated. And he said that tobacco is not addictive, but milk can be harmful to children. So I guess the check from the dairy lobby got lost in the mail, wouldn't you say? All of us, with all the things going on in the country, same-sex marriages become the big issue of the campaign, right? Look, I don't care if your marriage is same-sex or opposite sex. After 30 years, there's going to be no sex. Struck a nerve there, didn't we? Anyway, talk about your timing. You know that Morris thing? You know that a presidential campaign is officially underway when a story like this breaks. So just immediately after a White House sex scandal, we bomb Iraq. Goodness knows how many hookers notified Saddam Hussein in advance. So I went to both conventions. I was there in San Diego, I was there in Chicago, and when the Republicans were getting ready to have their convention, Bob Dole still hadn't picked a running mate. And at one point he said perfect 10s are in short supply. They had not ruled out 3 3s and a 1. And then they picked Jack Kemp. So the ticket is, in effect, Kemp and Dole, the long ball and the short fuse. If you watched the convention in San Diego, you probably figured out that most of the black delegates were rented. And in fact, the most authentic African-American presence at the Republican convention was when Mrs. Dole did her Oprah Winfrey impersonation. Bill Clinton kind of diluted the character issue, the so-called character issue, when he signed on to the Republicans' welfare bill. So now, if anybody brings up character, I mean, Clinton can say, character? Hell, if I had any character, I wouldn't have signed your welfare bill. But here is a direct quote, ladies and gentlemen. Before he signed the welfare bill, Clinton said, "You can put wings on a pig, but you can't make him an eagle." I have no idea what that means. But it's about as close to the Gettysburg Address as we're going to get. 96, here came the delegates. Chicago, Chicago. We're back once again. We're back once again. Chicago, Chicago. Remembering when cracking heads and tear gas in 68 in Chicago, Chicago. Cops dragging the hippies off to the city, and they do it again. On State Street, that great street, the potheads prevailed, the potheads prevailed. They lit up, and yes, it was inhaled. They were jailed. They brought to Chicago riots and grief, and one of them now is Commander-in-Chief, and the mayor is Daley once again. Chicago, Chicago. As time passes on, as time passes on, Chicago, Chicago. The old crowd is gone. Rostenkowski's gone off to summer camp from Chicago, Chicago. The cops are smiling. The whole scene looks so wrong. Bill Clinton supporters, we're so proud to be, we're so proud to be. We'd like to express our loyalty. We agree he's corrupt and a liar and slick as can be, but he's much more than that. He's our nominee in Chicago, where one vote counts for three. Vote early and often in Chicago, where one vote counts for three. Ba-ba-ba-deep. All right, now here's our poll. I remind the viewers around the country, the result you see here tonight in Buffalo will be duplicated by the rest of the nation on election day. So pay close attention. You're not going to hear anything. We ought to have the election tomorrow because you're not going to hear anything else. We've heard it all. That's it. We start our poll by going back 4 years to 1992, and we ask, how many of you in here in 1992, with your applause, please, how many of you in 1992 voted for George Bush? George? All right. Pretty good. All right, now remember that sound. As we ask you Bush people, how many of you this time around plan to vote for Bob Dole? Okay, it stayed about the same. But the fact that there was this annoying second of silence while you thought it over did not escape me, all right? How many of you plan to vote for Ross Perot? Thank you, sir. I know you don't mean it. It's just a sympathy thing to get me out of this hole that I have dug for myself. Have you no respect? I should vote for Perot because of the material he has given me and the fact that he won the nomination from the Reform Party. What a cliffhanger that was when he came from ahead and fended off a field of one. How many of you plan to vote for Harry Brown? What do you mean, who? He doesn't know you either. He is of the Libertarian Party. We don't put the Libertarians in there. We get 3 angry letters from Fairbanks, Alaska. Ralph Nader, Green Party. We don't mention him. We get 3 angry letters from Ralph Nader. Okay, finally, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. Wow. What is it? What is it? It's close. There's no 20% point spread now. Let me hear the Clinton vote again. Clinton, once again. All right. The reason I did that, we have folks in here from Chicago, and they like to vote twice. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.